Hi everyone, great to be here. First time at being at Camp Digital, really exciting. And yeah, what a great time to be talking about AI and the opportunities that we have. I work within Microsoft UK with our partner organizations that build software, which at the minute tends to be how are we going to go and use AI in really impactful, valuable ways. But also within our partner organization in the UK, I run our diversity, inclusion and accessibility team. So I think this is a fantastic event for me to come and talk about. Where do those things kind of intersect? And what are the opportunities that we're already seeing with this powerful technology? And I want to start by just talking a little bit about Microsoft, our mission and the journey that we've gone on as an organization around accessibility and innovation, and where these AI and accessibility now get to come together. The mission of Microsoft is to empower every individual and organization on the planet to achieve more. And actually, recently, Satya Nadella, the CEO, shared this quote, which I really like, because I think it speaks to the fact that if we're looking to build technology, it should be there for the benefit of everyone, including the planet itself. That then can be transferred into the idea of how are we inclusive with the way that we build the products and the technologies that we do. How are we out there protecting the fundamental human rights that we should be doing? But how are we doing that in a sustainable way? And then importantly, how are we trusted by everyone? If we're going to do this, it only works if we have everyone's trust. You can take a little bit of time and read that further if you wanted to. Obviously today I'm really dwelling on the inclusive side of things and just taking a look about what it is that Microsoft view as accessibility. And we know right now there's over 1 billion people on the planet with a form of disability. And actually it's important when Microsoft designers and engineers are looking at the services and the products that we build, that we're aware that disability could be permanent, it could be temporary, and it can even be situational, and that we all have experienced ourselves or know of people close to us who have forms of disability. And so we need to be making sure that the technology that we're building is accessible to everyone. And there are a number of reasons why that is so important. Perhaps the most important is that Microsoft view access to technology as a fundamental human right. And it's interesting that we think about the impacts of the pandemic and the mass acceleration we saw to digitize services, working from home, that hybrid way of working, that was in the space of months, the equivalent to at least 5 years of digital transformation. I'm sure you're all fairly familiar with Teams and how that just ramped up over that time. But it's not only within ways of working. Think of healthcare and education. How much did they change the way in which they use technology? How many services have become more digital first? We heard earlier from Lou around that idea of digital services in some cases maybe being exclusively digital, and that might be wrong as well, because is that truly accessible? And so it's important that when we're thinking about this rapid move to digitized and online service and product, is it always accessible? Well, the answer is no, it's not. And the World Health Organization has this term around the disability divide. And what they have discovered is that the disability divide is growing, which is alarming, because if we're rapidly moving to an online digital service delivery and all of our products are moving that way, why is it that it is not more accessible to people? Why is it that we're leaving people behind? And that is because all too often it's easy to focus on the majority and forget about those people who need to access technology in different ways. And there's definitely gaps within education as well, which is a big problem. But what's really interesting with this is that actually accessibility is an opportunity. If we think about the numbers involved here, we know that there's over 1 billion people on the planet with access needs. And that number continues to grow. And by 2050, it's estimated it will be 1.3 billion people. But weirdly, only 4% of businesses really consider how they have a strategy for building accessible and inclusive technologies and services. There was a survey, a report done in 2018 by Accenture, and they found that those organizations that are within that 4% that really do think about the strategy and provision that they make for inclusive and accessible technology, that actually those organizations have higher revenue, they have a better net income, and they have higher margins. There's actually better business when you consider a well-rounded and inclusive strategy. Now, that might be down to the organization pursuing that, having a more open, inclusive mindset. But equally, the products they build means it's more appealing to more people. And the numbers there really do speak for themselves. And it's that kind of context, that kind of view, the mission that Microsoft has, that I just want to give an overview of the journey that Microsoft has gone on, because we've not always been great at this. The very first thing that we did was in 1994, we introduced sticky keys to Windows. And over the series of years there, we added more technical accessibility features, predominantly to Windows. But alongside that technical progression, there was also a view of the people within the organization. How do we do more within Microsoft to support people with different access needs? And so in 2008, we had set up an employee resource group around disability. In 2010, we ran our first Ability Summit, which has now gone on to be a regular event within Microsoft's calendar. And it is a really, really fantastic event, sharing all kinds of best practice, the latest thinking, the latest innovations around accessibility. But it really changed in 2015 when Satya Nadella brought in a new company mission, which is the one I said earlier, to empower every individual and organization on the planet to achieve more. And since then, those two distinct things of tech and people have actually come together, and we've seen some real progress there, because the way in which we can build the most accessible products and services is when you have the well-rounded view of everyone involved in an organization to talk about their own experience and what do they expect and need from technology and the products and the way that the organization works. And you can see since then we've actually accelerated considerably the things that we do and the things that we put out there within our products and the way that we as an organization work. Up until 2022, when we've got the Inclusive Tech Lab, and I will mention that in a little bit, but you'll see again an acceleration from that point onwards as well. The way in which Microsoft has worked to raise the bar around accessibility is around 4 pillars. And these are things that we've kind of been able to recognize as we've gone on this journey over the past few years with that new mission. The first is technology. The second is then the people within the organization. The third one is policy. And the fourth one is partnership. Now, I'm going to go over 3 of these quite quickly just to share what we're doing at Microsoft around these. The technology one, that's where the AI bit comes in, and that's where I'm going to spend the rest of the talk on. So looking at people, there's a few things. I've been at a few different accessibility events over the last few years, and it's been interesting that sometimes the point I'm about to make is a little bit controversial. I think it's a great thing, which is at Microsoft, accessibility training is mandatory. Everyone, the 220,000 people around the globe at Microsoft will all go on accessibility training. And we actually make a load of the content that we do available on Microsoft Learn for everyone to go and learn that accessibility course, which is really, really good, really, really valuable. And what it does is it means that everyone approaches it from the same kind of place, and that actually it takes away some of the unease and the discomfort that some people might have around talking about accessibility. Another one is a way in which Microsoft does hiring, which is to be inclusive. And the thing that I want to call out here that I really like is that there is a global centralized budget for hiring, so that if a potential candidate, an employee, has certain access needs to work, that isn't up to the hiring manager to decide whether they can afford to hire that person because of their access needs. And I think there's some really valuable things here. On partnership, I want to touch on a couple of things. One is that Microsoft obviously has lots of accessibility features within the products that we have. They're not always obvious or clear how to access them and make use of them, but we want to be better at that, and that's where we've got our Disability Answer Desk. And it is a support service for anyone, any customer, to contact and ask, we've got this scenario, how do your products help someone in that case? And we've had, as the numbers say on the side, over 1.5 million calls since 2012, which is fantastic and shows the need for this service. More recently, we've also added an enterprise disability answer desk as well. We call it DAD, which I find a little odd. Just speak to Dad. I'm not sure. But it does work, and this is really valuable. So if there's some things to take away from this, make sure you're aware of this within your organization, because it really is very useful, very valuable. Another is accessibility resources. So there's a lot of work that goes on within Microsoft to understand how can we best build products and services that are accessible to everyone. And there's a whole load of resources. So if you go to microsoft.com/accessibility/resources, you can access a whole load of really, really valuable toolkits, case studies, and examples. So again, something to take away and bring back. And then finally, on the partnership piece, is the Horizon methodology, which is a terminology that we've used for the last couple of years. If you're aware of Hector Minto, who does a lot of good work in this area, this is something that he talks a lot about, and it makes a lot of sense. But what we see within companies that go on their own accessibility journey is it starts at the adoption phase, Horizon 1. That's when an organization starts maybe creating that employee resource group type setup. Then they go on to Horizon 2, where they start building better, more accessible, more inclusive processes within their organization. That might be a hiring process. It might not be to do with the products or services that they offer. Maybe it's just internal stuff. And then the final one is Horizon 3, where they are really innovating. They're really thinking about that end user. Again, might be internal, but often it's the end customer in this scenario. That's where they really start bringing innovative new ways of thinking to what they are offering that make sure that they are accessible to the customers, to make sure that they really can utilize everything that that organization is offering. On policy, I'll touch on this very, very quickly. You will see Microsoft show up when it comes to policy kind of review and sharing what is best practice to help drive that accessible technology approach. It is so important that it's not just us as an organization that we see this happening, but it needs to be there in regulation as well. So then, looking at the technology and where does AI fit within this whole narrative? Well, obviously, we've got this real opportunity with generative AI to do things a bit differently. And as I say, a lot of what my day job is working with software makers in the UK to explore how we can use AI. And I know earlier Lou showed a desire path picture, and at times I have also shown a desire path picture when talking about AI, because I think AI actually really does get us to where we want to be much quicker. We've probably all spent many years using the Office suite of products. We've had to learn them. We might have forgotten when we learned them, but we have had to learn them. But actually, all we ever really wanted to do was get that PowerPoint deck done, that email written, the document put together. We've spent a lot of time putting that stuff together, when really the valuable thing was conveying the message, sharing the information, and doing that critical analysis work, and then presenting that to someone. AI helps us get to that end goal so much quicker. You think of Copilot in Microsoft 365. You can really just ask it to go and give you that first draft, to run some numbers in Power BI. We don't have to now learn the tools to the same level that we have had to in the past. Rather, we get AI to go and get us maybe 80%, maybe 90% of the way to what we wanted to do. It massively saves our time to really focus on the valuable aspects of our job. And I don't think spending a lot of time writing emails is what we would generally class as the valuable aspect of our job. Something that we need to do. When it comes to the AI piece and where we can use that within accessibility. That's where the Inclusive Tech Lab has been quite instrumental in looking within Microsoft, but then equally outside of Microsoft. What organizations out there are doing some amazing things focused around accessibility, and where can Microsoft's AI technology really help there? And that's where I want to spend the next few slides going over some of the things that you will see in our products, and then what else is going on within our partner organizations. But when we think about AI, it's important to remember and understand when Microsoft talk about AI, we're viewing it as responsible AI. Now, this is an ongoing process, and at the minute, this is where we think we should be focusing our efforts to make sure that the AI that we're building is responsible, and we see it within 6 pillars, which you can see there. It's fairness, it's reliability and safety, it has privacy and security there, it's inclusive, it's got transparency, and it's accountable. Without those things, AI isn't there to serve everyone and empower everyone. And if it's not accountable and if it's not transparent, then it's just a bit of a black box that people can go, oh, well, the AI did that. And it shouldn't be that the AI does anything on its own. It should be there to help us, and we remain accountable for what it is giving the output of. We're the ones accountable for running the decisions on top of that. And of course, it needs to be reliable and safe. It should do what we expect it to do, and we should be able to trust it. And it shouldn't abuse the privacy and security that people have come to expect from what Microsoft offers. So these are key tenets of any AI product that Microsoft is building. And actually, when you think about that from an accessibility perspective, well, inclusiveness is what we would expect as well. And we expect to be able to innovate there and to treat the data that we have in a responsible way. And so actually, accessible AI and responsible AI, they kind of go hand in hand, which is really, really powerful. And when we think about the journey that tech has been going on, you can see this timeline, and actually I caught up with Hector last week, and this is some of the latest kind of view of where are things today and where are we going in the next kind of few years. Well, you can see that voice is kind of where we're at the minute. And I didn't really mean to make my voice louder when I did that. It just happened. Voice is perhaps the next paradigm opportunity for where we will primarily be interfacing with technology. We've seen it for a little while with home speakers, but generative AI is making that even more powerful because the computer, the technology, really understands our intent, maybe for the first time. But then when we think about what happens with technology and disability and how can we access that technology, again, this is where we're seeing AI really, really come into its own at this point. There's been great innovations over decades around making sure that technology is accessible, some of which we now rely on with the latest AI features. So if ever you've turned on transcription in Teams, which if you haven't done, I would really encourage you to do so, Copilot in Teams relies on that transcription. Now that has been in Teams far longer than Copilot has existed as an accessibility feature, but that's the same with closed captioning and captioning in general. Those have been features from an accessibility perspective, which are now really allowing innovation to happen. And it's often the way that technology that starts off first for accessibility goes on to become mainstream and become really, really powerful in the years to come. Much like I'm going to demonstrate now is the ability that in most of the Microsoft apps now, you have the ability, and sometimes it's automatic, for alt text to be added to images. Alt text isn't new on images, but what we're doing now is actually, let's make that automatic. Let's make a document with images more accessible to everyone for screen readers to understand and describe what it is with the alt text. It's extremely useful. And we're going to come back to this in just a moment. What we're seeing with AI is that LLM, the large language model, is actually allowing for natural language interaction. That might be the real unlocking feature of generative AI. But when you couple that with speech recognition, image recognition, what we see is this real ability for technology to amplify our own capability. And as I say, this might be the first time that the computer understands our intent, rather than us needing to go and learn the tools and the systems that we've built on the technology. What that is actually offering us are some new experiences. So you could kind of broadly view this as one is a type of interrogation. You can go and ask Copilot a load of questions and really challenge it, but you can also then use it to help edit. And when you think about this in the context of accessibility, these are really powerful, but they're really useful anyway. I'm not great at the start of a Teams meeting trying to take notes about who everyone is, what role they have, what organization are they from, because I'll start making notes and then I will not be listening to the next person who introduces themselves. So a really, really powerful Copilot prompt that I like to use is once everyone has finished doing their introductions, I'll ask it to give me a summary of who everyone is in the meeting. And I don't have to be distracted so much now. And asking Copilot to give me a recap of anything that I might have missed is really, really powerful. But you can see some of the other types of use here that really makes the computer far more useful to everyone and is a hugely impactful way of democratizing the technology that we all have access to now. And I love the way of that we get to do a first draft or do image creation. Sometimes I've got things in my mind which I can't put down on paper very well. I just chuck my kind of verbal diarrhea into the Copilot prompt box, and it will come out with something that is much more cohesive and structured, and is really, really valuable in that way. And so where we then see these use cases showing up is, as I say already, like we've got live captions, we've seen them become better and better, they are becoming more accurate. We've got content reading, which is great for neurodivergent and visibility impaired individuals. Translation, that's not a new use of tech, but we're seeing that become far more accurate. What about real-time translation? Does it allow us to have conversations in real time in 2 different languages? That's really, really powerful. We have the ability to use voice far more reliably than we've ever been able to before. And then we can use tech to describe images. And each one of these is a fantastic use case, but what becomes really, really powerful is when these things start being combined together. So I've got a couple of examples to go through with where these are really coming together. And we've been running various early access programs for these features and technologies and the products that we have, and we are finding fantastic results here. So when we've been building these AI experiences, the accessibility team at Microsoft has been involved in all of those, which is why we're seeing such great outcomes against these kind of 3 areas, that it does actually meet poor. That we are seeing new ally experiences is actually, if you think about what the prompt box is in Copilot, it's a text box or it's a microphone. Those are 2 things that have been around for a very long time and can be made accessible very, very easily. And so actually that is an accessible way to access this really powerful technology, and it does make existing experiences more useful. And so this is a fantastic technology, not just in the realm of accessibility. So for example, where we see the tech, AI and accessibility come together, there's predictions. That might not be new, but it becomes more accurate with the latest advances in AI. You can dictate using voice and have that interaction with Windows just using your voice. Again, that has become more reliable with what we're seeing. But if you think about now the ability to not have just a reliable voice input, but the ability to kind of dictate to an AI that understands your intent, you can ask it far more than we've ever been able to do before. We don't have to know the individual command to kind of speak to the computer to get it to do what we want. It understands maybe slightly more fluffy, slightly less accurate language that we're using naturally to get what we want done. We've got editor features Again, that is infused with AI to understand what it is that we're trying to say. Can that be said more succinctly, more professionally, more of a casual style? This idea of style, not just pure grammar rules, is really, really powerful at making sure that we convey in the way that we want to convey that message. But then we can also get different length content done, which if you're trying to make a point really, really quickly, you might want it to be really succinct. Sometimes you might want a more thorough explanation of something. And so by being able to change the style, the length, the mode in which someone's going to receive this content, you can really be accessible to the recipient in the way that you are creating that content. And as a way of a bit of like a story, I guess, I'm a developer by background, and I know how dangerous live demos are. So I've got some screenshots and I've got some videos to show you. But this kind of example of being able to write how to get to the BT Tower from Buckingham Palace, which you could put into a search engine and you'll get some results, but you won't necessarily get the right result that you're after every time. You can type that in, you could use voice to just say that. You can also use prediction to get the next word that you wanted there. And then you get a response back, and it will give you the citations. So maybe you can click on that and you can see what it is that, just check that the BT Tower is the BT Tower that you're expecting from the Copilot. And then you could use screen reader to read that in the best way, in the accessible way that you need it to be presented. But then you could also have it be read aloud. And this is all infused with AI. Some of it is not so apparent, but it is there, and it makes this whole journey very, very easy for anyone to get out of the wealth of information and the power of the technology which we have available to us. So then I just wanted to touch on Copilot. So Copilot in Microsoft 365, and this is a demonstration of some of the things I've spoken about in terms of being able to write a document in Word. You can do that in line. So as you're going, you can ask it some prompts. Maybe you need a table of contents, an index. Maybe you need some more information. You don't like something, select it. Tell Copilot to rewrite it. Make it more professional. Cover some additional points. And it will do all of that. And look how quickly it can go and create a lengthy Word document. Now, that's your first draft. It might not be the final thing. You probably should take a look at it and make sure you're happy with what it's saying there. But how much time has that saved? And how easy is it to do this? But you can also use it in Edge, where now you can get summaries for the content that you're seeing in the browser. You can get summaries of PDFs. And one of the examples earlier was, what if there's some content that hasn't been presented in an accessible way, but you can get Copilot to summarize it for you? Now, the Copilot response will be in an accessible manner. So we can close that disability divide with this technology, because things that weren't created in an accessible way can be now accessed in the ways that we need. So going back to the alt text example, this is the type of description we can now get for alt text images. When we put this image through the latest GPT models, those LLMs, we can get a very, very detailed description, which the first alt text was useful, but this is far more powerful for someone who is visually impaired. To be able to get this understanding of an image and to have that happen in Microsoft products for free, just happens. We're really at this opportunity where technology and doing things in an accessible way isn't a barrier. It's actually so easy, and it's beneficial to everyone to get these descriptions, to get this content in the right accessible manner for the recipient to be able to learn and understand in the way that we would expect them to be able to. I wanted to share a tip about prompting, in case you're unaware, but this is where GCSEs do come in handy, because if you think of it in 4 ways, you've got goal, context, source, and expectations. And if you think about that, whenever you write a prompt, you'll get the most out of that AI experience. So I thought it was a useful thing to just share. It's not completely in the realm of accessibility, but it is a very useful thing to be aware of when using AI. There are a number of people within Microsoft who use Copilot, and they've done a fantastic series of videos around how they have particular access needs with technology. And they talk about the way in which Copilot supports them and helps them get the most out of the technology that they use. I'm going to show one video. It's only a minute long, but you can find a whole playlist of these on YouTube if you go to aka.ms/thisismycopilot. And I think they are a fantastic set of videos to really show the real-world examples that people have for using AI and Copilot in the context of accessibility.
Hi, I'm Adam Gernan, based in Melbourne, Australia, but originally an Irish native. Having been diagnosed with adult ADHD, it now makes so much more sense as to why every time I go and use Excel, and pivot tables specifically, it feels like I'm learning it for the first time, every time. So what I'm going to show you is how I'm able to use Copilot to be able to get me to a draft version that is so much easier for me then to be able to edit to create exactly what I need rather than having to learn it all again. So let's ask Copilot to create a D&I report that will show gender by country in the countries that we operate in. As you can see, it's now created that. So much easier now for me to be able to add to that the ethnicity and put it where I need it so that I get the outcomes that I need to be able to compare for the two. This is my Copilot. How can yours help you?
It's a really good example. As I say, there are many other examples. And I do think it's worth just seeing how Copilot really helps in these different scenarios. And we're learning this at Microsoft. We're learning how to build these responsible AIs. We're learning how to best build them in that accessible way. We're learning how we get the most from this technology. And we would love your own stories and feedback about how you're finding Copilot to really support you in the work that you do. Looking now at some of the partner organizations that we have, I want to dwell a little bit on Seeing AI, which is built internally. It's a standalone app and experience, and it's been out for a little while, but it's been enriched with the latest GPTs. And so I just want to show this video because I think it's really, really powerful and a different way that AI can be used from an accessibility perspective.
Shakib Sheikh.
I lost my sight when I was 7, and ever since then I've been interested in technology and how it can have an impact to improve people's lives. A few years ago, I got the opportunity to follow my passion and to work on Seeing AI, which is a talking camera app for people who are blind. About a year ago, we started hearing about generative AI and experimenting with the different ways it can help. But the recent announcement a couple of months ago of GPT-4, now that just took things to a whole new level.
Smaller white text. Below the text, there is an illustration of a pink fish. The sign is hanging above the entrance of a restaurant.
The big difference is now these large models have been trained to recognize so many different things. And the language capabilities, we can get very rich, vivid descriptions of images and the world around us.
The crane is extended upwards and appears to be in use.
Shakib and his son hold hands at an aquarium.
Sometimes when I'm out and about with my son, I really enjoy having those conversations about the things around us.
Tell me about the starfish.
The most distinctive is the bright orange starfish, which stands out against the darker colors of the other starfish.
My son and I have so many fun adventures, and it's incredible to think what this will enable us to share together.
Shakib listens to a description on his phone.
I imagine this future where AI and humans work together, where the AI understands us each as individuals and can fill in the gaps for each and every one of us.
Microsoft.
So another really powerful example showing what the opportunity that we have with this technology to really make the world around us accessible to everyone. And I think we're going to see some amazing innovation probably over the next few months, certainly over the next few years, where this technology can really transform lives for everyone, especially those who want to be able to access the world. And so this is really, really powerful stuff. The final one is another app that's called Be My Eyes. Again, a really, really powerful use case for this generative AI. The way that it can analyze still images, live video, the whole lot, and describe it in a way that is accessible to the individual.
Introducing the future, a new era of assistant. Be my fashion advisor.
Take picture. Ask question. A blue sweater with a high neckline.
Be my green thumb.
Take picture. Ask question. Button. This looks like an eucalyptus plant.
Be my translator.
It appears to be a bottle of Worcestershire, a Chinese rice wine.
Be my maitre d'.
The second picture shows a page titled House Favorites. Would you like me to read out specific options?
Be my gym partner.
Then turn right and walk until you reach the first set of machines. The treadmills will be on your left.
Be my map.
Transfer to the central line and take the tube to Tottenham Court Road.
I have my own bunker.
Be my guide.
It appears to contain various types of drinks such as Lucozade.
Be my gateway.
A white dress with a high neckline and long sleeves. It has a layered skirt with a scalloped hair.
Be my AI. Be my eyes.
So what we're seeing with these kind of experiences is this combination of multimodal GPT, LLMs. We're seeing this ability to bring together these different use cases, voice to text, text to voice, translation, scanning images, video. It all comes together in these fantastic ways, which is just really, really amazing to think of what has only been available for the last 18 months or so, and we're seeing these fantastic experiences. What does the future hold? And actually, going back to the disability answer desk, we've incorporated some of the functionality from Be My Eyes into that disability answer desk, because we want to make sure that the products, the services that Microsoft has can make use of these fantastic innovations that others are bringing as well. So when I say that we really want to know your own experiences, what are the challenges that you might have, please do let us know, because we want to partner, we want to develop these to make sure that the technology that is available to everyone, where and how they need it. One final thing that I think is just useful, it's not AI, but it is the accessibility assistant within the Office applications. I'm sure you're all familiar with the spell checker that does kind of squiggly underlines to say if you've made a typo or whatever. The accessibility assistant can be thought of in the same way, but it will automatically let you know if what you have created in an Office app is not actually accessible. Now, you could think about the color between the text and the background, the font size, things that some people just take for granted, but for others, they can't actually then read what you're trying to share with them. And so we've got this coming soon by default in Office apps that will be a really, really powerful way, again, to make sure that the recipient can get out of the information that you're sharing with them exactly what it is that you're trying to convey. And I think between the ability to create content in the style and the length and in the mode that you want, making sure that the recipient is going to be able to access that and be able to read it in the way that they need, that is a really, really powerful opportunity to use technology to really empower everyone to achieve more. Thank you.